Huge.
How do I know
think it's-
somebody did
yeah.
put something in?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Have we not met since January?
I believe so.
Yeah, wow.
That's why you're here.
I have to move this chair. It's inappropriately high.
They have little controls over here, but
I tried to
if you
find
pull
it.
it the wrong way, it ejects you.
Pull it up.
Is that better?
Oh, boy. I feel tiny next to it.
I'm short waist,
There's
so I have
all of them are back
In the
there,
top.
yeah.
Okay, didn't know that.
thing for my.
Okay, you started at 12.
Look at you. Well, I mean, some of your council meetings sure go late, so I
She knows
understand the need
everything
for
here.
comfort.
They become marathons.
I tell by all the paperwork that you have, I will tell like that. I just moved mine with Scott.
Well, pretty good overall. I just been came down with like bronchitis a couple of weeks ago, so it's been kind of rough. Can't sleep at night,
Yes.
coughing all the time.
You know, I have a
about-
pad here, she
A
can
chocolate
use.
Okay.
bag, that's under you.
I was driving away and was like, should I run back and get it?
Well, she told me a minute ago that he had,
Oh, he did? Oh, okay.
Oh, thanks.
I just got those from the restaurant we went to, so there you go.
Thank you.
They get that tickle.
Yeah, I do. I get it all the time, but the minute I think I'm tired, I want to go to bed, and then
Mine's
it's
still up here.
tickle.
I don't know where yours is at, Scott, so you're only gonna get just park commissioner.
That's fine.
So,
Oh, that's right, yeah, well.
we'll find it between now and then. Now and next time.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I just I'm gonna be
You say you're
coughing.
fighting off a cold?
No, it's like a viral bronchitis.
So you're not contagious, right?
No, the
Test.
doctor said after
Test,
about the
test.
first
Microphones are on.
I wasn't contagious.
No. Video is on. Parks Commission, September 11th, 2018. What are we ready for?
Christine, is your name spelled with a Y?
Yes. K-R-Y. You know, my name's spelled so
When you go to
peculiar that I just
bring
don't
the-
bother
the,
correcting people
Mine
anymore.
too.
Doesn't matter, I guess.
No.
Yeah, 'cause I
You
have
gotta
the
go to
A,
that other
which really
screen. How do you
throws
flip to
people.
that other
Right.
screen?
Audio recorder or
Thank you.
voting mode?
Backlog. Thank you.
Scott's very good with the backlog. Very good.
Send to Okay, okay. To get the screen up. Gotcha.
Here it comes.
Guess we have a PowerPoint. Do we need to send to? Oh, you sent to all? Okay.
My PowerPoint on there.
Did you put this in?
Get my last meeting notes or anything.
I did the last one. When, did we
I
meet?
think we didn't meet.
Did you meet in June? You didn't meet in June, no, huh? So it's the
January.
January, yeah, that's what I have. I
Yeah,
have my notes.
January. Me too.
Because they met with the park commission briefly and, but I was gone.
Good work.
All right, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay. All right. As soon as my ink pen starts working. Excuse me. All right. Meeting is, it's 4:25 PM. We'll call the meeting of the Park Commission to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Michelle Khan,
Here?
Scott Lawrence,
Here?
Christina Riggs,
Here.
and we have 2 vacant positions for the record.
All right, we will do the pledge. If you'll all stand, please, and put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognition of individuals who wish to speak on agenda items. Anyone in the audience that would like to address any of the agenda items tonight?
Marlene's good.
Pass? Okay. Consent calendar. We have none, I assume.
And the same with the minutes then.
So
Yeah,
we'll skip.
that's fine.
So we have not had a meeting since January. We're supposed to be quarterly. So this is a special meeting tonight to get us back on track. And so we have some regular business items, and the first one, excuse me, under regular business is an introduction of staff to commissioners.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. We're here, I'm sorry, I just got totally lost my train of thought. Commissioner Lawrence, I know I really do know who you are. I mean, so, for whatever reason, I just stumbled at that. I was looking at the picture and just, you know, I faded away into the picture instead of where I was at. So, but anyway, good afternoon, Commissioner Lawrence and Commission. My name is Bill LaGrone. I'm the Assistant City Administrator for the City of Oroville right now. I'm acting in that capacity. We've had some turnover, as you're aware. I just want to introduce our staff. Our clerk is Joanna Gutierrez. She's our interim city clerk. And Cecilia Carmona will be an administrative assistant. She will be your point of contact with the city at this point. She's going to be our new replacement for Dawn Nevers. So she will be the one that you will be directly contacting the city through if you need to get a hold of me or any projects or anything that, you know, the commission may need. She would be the one to contact for that.
And what is your name again?
Cecilia Carmona.
Cecilia?
Carmona.
And with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and just move through this if that is okay with the commission.
Absolutely.
The first thing I need to do is apologize to the commission. I sincerely apologize for not having the quarterly meetings. Quite honestly, there was a lot of turnover. Things were happening. And just to be really, you know, blunt, I forgot about you. And it dawned on me the other day as I was at a council meeting and I'm talking about doing significant things in the park that I forgot to tell the park commission. But yet here I am, and yet it's already been done. So this is really just to advise you what we have done, why we've done it, and to assure you that we won't do it anymore without bringing these things to you and this commission prior to taking actions. It wasn't done in any way to be disrespectful or to circumvent you or to go around you. Be really honest, like I told you, I just forgot and moved ahead, got ahead of myself. So I apologize for that. That's squarely on me. That's my fault. I will wear that. So what we've been doing, Bedrock Park is probably the one that you may or may not have heard about what we've done down there, but just to update you on what we did and why we did it. See if I can get my clicker turned back on here. The bleachers down at Bedrock Park. This had become a contentious issue for not only for the public safety individuals, but also our park workers. If you can see, there's a black square kind of toward the back where it starts to go up the levee. That is actually an opening that takes you underneath the bleachers. That had been secured multiple times with steel doors. It had been welded shut, and all sorts of different ways to keep people out of there had been tried by our parks department. Unfortunately, our transient population had found, or somebody had found their way into there. It was believed to be transients based upon the materials that were found underneath when we got underneath there. They had gotten underneath there, and the structure of this is one that the levee goes up, and then there's metal that comes down that supports these onto pillars that are in the ground. The supporting structure had been compromised from either being hit, beat on, hammered on, not really sure, but it had been weakened, and the bleachers had become They weren't so stable to the point that it appeared they were in imminent danger of collapsing, but there was the potential, if loaded up, that this could happen because of the structure or compromise that had occurred underneath. Also, the issues that were going on with them is on the top and the seating areas, they had become worn. They were pilling away from one another and separating. There were sharp edges on them, and this had become quite an issue for the city. It had also become an issue for public safety as a gathering place for individuals that were wanting to do things that they necessarily shouldn't be doing in the park. This is just another view of it. They've been vandalized multiple times. It's been cleaned over and over and over, and this is some of the graffiti vandalism that's on there. You can see it's on the cement approach at the bottom and also the seating areas. They did a pretty thorough job there. This is what was underneath. When we got underneath and started the removal of these bleachers, underneath in the area, you're seeing some of the garbage there. If you look in the back, you'll see some pink kind of against the wall. That's a tarp that somebody put up. People were living underneath there. What had happened underneath there is there was a significant amount of human fecal matter. There were syringes, stolen property, and just all sorts of just trash and things that had accumulated under there. This is what it looks like now. The bleachers have been removed. It's kind of opened up the whole area down there. You know, when I look at it with this picture, and I know you can always take pictures that show you what you want to see, I prefer this picture myself. It looks more open, more inviting than the previous one where you had the view of the thing like that. And we'll try to get another further view. But that's just personal.
Is the wall space gone too?
No, the holes in the wall that would access the steps are still there. That's going to be closed up. It's going to be cemented in, and it's going to be made to blend in with the rest of it, is what I'm being told by Wade.
So they're gonna be put, is that benches that's on there, or will be benches back again? Or?
No, those are actually going to come out.
Oh.
Those are going to be jackhammered off of there, and it's just going to be a smooth surface coming down.
Just
It's,
like the rest
it's going to
of
look
the
like, yeah, and eventually once it gets enough rain on it and enough buildup of the moss and the things out there, it'll look like the rest of the wall. You won't even know that that feature existed at any point.
The stairs still there?
The stairs are all gone. The cement stairs that come down in the park, yes, those are still there, so people can access from the levee down into the park. Just the stairs that were on the bleachers are gone. You no longer have access there. This is the bathroom at Bedrock Park. This is where the control valves or the electrical controls and the panels and things like that are at. This is being broken into on a regular basis. They've tried to reinforce the locks over and over and done different things, but people just keep breaking into here. As you can see by the contents in there, that somebody's been living in here. So we are still actively working on that, trying to figure out how we're going to defeat that.
Are those the ones on the top of the levee then?
Correct. That's the ones that up by the parking lot that's up top.
So the city assumed responsibility of those bathrooms when they took the park back on?
Correct. So this is the issue that we're running into at the Parks Department, and this presentation was prepared for the council and for the community, so I'm not sure if the Parks Commission is aware or not, but right now we have 3 employees in the Parks Department for the city of Oroville to handle all of our street trees, all of our parks, all of any public right-of-ways that we have that have any sort of landscape and maintenance agreement on them. That's currently what we're working with. So when people, you know, when you're out and about and people want to know about the condition of the parks, you know, our Parks Department is down there. They're doing the best job that they can with the resources that are available. They go to the park, Bedrock Park, 4 times a week. As quickly as they clean it, though, people come through and do make messes in there, scatter trash around, and continue to vandalize the place. The doorways have been reinforced on our electrical panels and our control rooms multiple times. They continue to break off the electrical outlets that are on the light poles that are in the parks, different places. So it's almost a constant battle. They pull wire down to our irrigation system. They've pulled that out. So it's we've had multiple issues all over town. So, but they are continuing to, you know, provide the service they've been providing. It isn't a matter if we stop doing anything, it just takes longer between cycles to get back because of the number of individuals we currently have employed. What we're going to do at Bedrock Park as part of tearing out the bleachers is we're going to try to add some more amenities to there. We're going to be adding 7 to 8 new sycamore trees. These trees actually came from the trees on Feather River Boulevard when those trees were removed. So they're ready to transplant into there, and we're going to be putting 7 to 8 of those into Riverbend Park. We're going to be moving in additional picnic tables and benches. We're going to maintain the barbecues, ensure that those are there. I mean, that was, at first I thought it was a good, I got told that would be an absolute, not the thing to do, because a lot of people do use those. I was not aware of that, but our park supervisor seems to believe that that would be something that we need to do, so we will be doing that. We're also going to be repairing the irrigation system in the park, and we're trying to get it greened up, try to get more grass down there. And then we're going to be removing the slab that was in front of the old bleachers. We're going to take that out completely. And then we're going to be going back to the SBF. I have potentially 3 funding sources. The SBF will be the preferred. We're going to ask for a pavilion for the park. We're going to try to put something similar to this in Bedrock Park, because I think it would be a real nice little venue if you had a shade structure, something that we can take care of. Nobody can get underneath it. They can't really do a lot to it. You may get some graffiti and things like that, but that can be fixed with paint, as opposed to the other one. Something similar to this. The biggest issue you run into on putting something like this down there is we have to get something that can stand up to at least 100,000 CFS of water flow, because that is a working channel of water. Water is going to go through there, so we're not going to build something so, I'm not going to say flimsy, but something that can't withstand that amount of water movement, because I don't want to put that in there, then immediately turn around and, you know, it'd be washed away, or it'd be undermined or undercut or something. So we're going to be going back to the SBF with a number to see what it's going to cost to get that built, and then we're going to try to get something like that built down there, because that will be the new feature of the park. And you know, and we'll see along the way too other things that we could potentially try to add to the park. If we come up with anything, we'll bring those back and say this is what we're thinking. You know, I was thinking some sort of maybe one small play accessory, such as a swing set, a climbing thing, something just for children, because we're trying to attract more families to the park, keep more people in the park. That way the people that we don't want in the park won't be in the park. So that's what we're doing down there. The other thing that we're doing with all of the parks overall is we're looking at a water flow or a water management system, so that, you know, you have a master control in one place where you'll be controlling all of your sprinklers, so that we know what each one of them are doing. Our water bill is, we spend a huge amount of money on water. One of the locations that we spend water on that we're going to have to really assess what we're going to do with it is going to be Highway 70 at Montgomery. The landscaping's pretty, but it's $1,400 a month to water it. That's a lot of money that we're spending at that location just for water. Some of the problems we run into at these locations are people are breaking water pipes, they are turning water on and it's flowing. If we have this master control system, it's going to let us know that we have this particular sprinkler that's flowing, or the flow is this much through there, and we'll be able to shut that down. We'll be able to go out with our limited park staff and identify what the problem is, as opposed to having to go turn all the sprinklers on and see what exactly is happening with that park. So we are working on a system such as that. Wade is getting us some prices on that, and we'll be bringing that back. And Wade will be bringing it back with a much more detailed explanation to you of what we're talking about and how that works. So that's what we got going on at Bedrock Park. That's what we did down there. The bleachers are gone. You know, like I said, again, I apologize for not coming to you ahead of time and getting your buy-in or your thoughts on this. Like I say, I apologize for that, but that's what we did down there. That's really all I have on Bedrock Park. The Nature Center, moving on to that, I don't have a presentation on the Nature Center. Just to update you on what's going on at the Nature Center, I don't know if you're aware of how the Nature Center is broke up and who all is essentially in partnerships on that road. It's the city of Oroville, it's the railroad, and then it's also DWR. We only own to just a little bit past the bathhouse, and then that becomes railroad property. Our roads are repaired in the Nature Center. So it has been opened back up down to a little bit past the bathhouse. There is a turnout. What we've done is we've taken heavy cement blocks. You've probably seen them, those big cement things, and they have metal hooks that come out of the top. We've set one of those on each side of the road, and we put a piece of chain across there so that you can't go any further than that. The reason being is because on the Union Pacific part of the road, it is still washed out and undercut, and it is not something that you want vehicles regularly traveling on. So at the just past where the city's jurisdictional boundary stops, we put this block so that people can't get past there, but the park is back open so that people can get down in there. The outhouse has been cleaned out, evacuated. The crews have been in there to pick up the garbage, to start trying to get the park back into some sort of condition so that it is usable again. But it has been opened back up to the public at the city's portion of it. The reason why the road hasn't been fixed on the other part is because it is still going through the permitting process with the state, because you are actually inside the channel of the river. You can't introduce foreign aggregate, and you have to also go through all of the cultural assessments of the area to ensure that you're not disturbing anything when you do any sort of work down there. So we are working through that process. It's not that it is the cities so much, but we are working with DWR to do this because we're channeling the FEMA money through us to get that road fixed, because we feel it is important to our community to open that back up. The reason.
I haven't been down there, so forgive me, but you said it's opened, the city's road is open to just past the nature center?
Correct.
But then you said it was railroad beyond that?
Correct, that belongs to the railroad.
But it sounds like some of it is also city too, because you're the one that's down there trying to do this preliminary work before you can repair the road.
No, DWR is actually doing the work.
Beyond where your barricade is.
Correct.
Is DWR.
Correct. FEMA, when they addressed this issue with the undercutting of the road, they paid essentially, or they awarded an award for all of the road, when we were the recipients of that award. So what's happening is DWR is doing all of the work, and we are going to pass the money through us to them. So we're cooperating with them and coordinating with them. So it's an issue of how the money came in from FEMA.
So where the barricade is,
that's the end of city property.
It's all repaired down.
Correct.
Down to that far.
Yes, sir.
But then from then on, there's still work to be done.
Yes, there's a significant undercut. You can see up toward where the pipe gate is at, as just by the barrier dam.
Mm-hmm. And then the park itself, the picnic area, and is that usable now?
Yes, it's been cleaned back up. It's very dry. It's not as green or as lush as I've seen it in the past. Last time I was down there, and it wasn't in good shape last time I was down there, because it had been closed for so long, and people were coming into the area, and with nobody there, they were creating large messes. But we have had people in there to do all of the start on the weed eating, to get the weeds back under control, and to get all the garbage picked up, and do all the things necessary to get it back open and usable.
But the nature center itself it's not open, right?
I don't know if the docents are opening it or not. It could be.
I don't think they have yet, but they did have a meeting. They did about it. They were concerned about, besides it being closed and the homeless population was there, they also said that a lot of the plantings they had done and some of the rock work around the entries and so on around were damaged with the flooding.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But we do have that, that was, it stayed closed for a long time, and I know there was a big push by a lot of people to get that back open, but we have been able to achieve that up to there. So that's where we're at on that project. I don't believe there's any of the other parks that we have really had any big impact on or done anything other than just try to maintain.
The only thing that I've heard were some grumblings when the work was done in the parking lot A.
Yes.
That some trees were removed.
Correct.
And once again, it was kind of afraid, that we were going to get hammered for trees being removed without public comment. And that's this group, our group,
right,
is kind of become the only forum that people feel comfortable coming to and addressing.
There was plenty of public comment on this. I mean, this went on for months. I mean, and for anybody to really look you in the face and say they didn't know, it's because they weren't paying attention.
I don't know that they didn't know what was happening down there, but I think that there were, once again, there are always people that feel that you don't have to
Sure.
take the trees out.
Yeah, and they are going to be put back. I know that when PG&E, they have a complete landscape restoration plan for that, and the trees that they're putting in aren't going to be the typical ones that you see, is what they're telling us, that you're going to see they're about an inch around. They're going to put in the ones that come in bigger gallon pots, so they're more mature trees. So that I think we're going to see a little bit difference as opposed to when a new parking lot goes in. But there is supposed to be a complete landscape restoration plan for this lot down there. I believe we have it somewhere. I don't have it with me today. But it was one of those things. And yes, Commissioner Lawrence, there was a lot of angst about that when that started down there.
Well,
I think.
know the whole project was, there was a lot of opinions as to how
Oh,
that
yes.
should be handled down there.
Well, there was originally started, with they were going to put in a pavilion, or they were going to put something in the middle of the parking lot, and then there's something toward the back, then something toward the front. And I think, I know what we ended up landing on was we'll just put it back just like it is. And my understanding is that's exactly what we're supposed to be getting is just like it is, with the exception of we are going to be adding some electric vehicle charging stations that PG&E is going to be putting in for us. And I've also asked them to put in additional electrical outlets for when there are community events, or at least places where we can tie in something and put some sort of a head in there so that everybody, all the vendors can plug in. Because one of the things that we seem to always run into down there is when we do have either it's Feather Fiesta Days or whatever the event is going on downtown, is we don't have enough electrical sources for everybody that wants to plug in. So we are asking them also while that's down there to put that in.
One of the things that I've been curious about at just about every park commission meeting that I've attended is what is happening at the municipal auditorium as far as getting a new floor in there.
Where we're at with that is that we did put it out, and then I believe we had $78,000 for the project. The cheapest bid that we got back was $105,000. So what we're going to do, the thought was, let's wait again. Everybody's really busy right now this time of year. We're going to wait until January and send it out again and see if we can get better prices, because work, may not be as busy as it is right now. People might be a little more hungry, and we'll do that. Or maybe in the meantime too, we'll be able to find some other matching monies to put with that so we can get there. We are still moving forward on that.
That money's not going to go away.
No, it's not going away. That money is dedicated to that project, and we are, I'm anxious to get that done too, because I'd really like to see that building open back up for, activities
Make
for.
a world of difference.
Yeah,
It really
for,
would.
I'd like to see men's basketball, women's basketball, adult league type stuff. It's it's something that I think the community can really use, and I want to get that thing open back up as soon as possible.
I did drive around and take a look at the parks today. Not all of them, but some of them. And they need a mowing very badly. Do you have any idea how often they get mowed?
I do not know the schedule for the mowing.
It almost looks like the mowers broke down.
Yeah, no, it's not broke down. It's just a matter, there's nobody to drive it.
The people are.
Yeah, that's, we're working on that. I can ask Wade to get us a mowing schedule so you kind of have an idea of when the mowing is occurring, because, I don't know, to be perfect.
Looks like they're about maybe a couple weeks.
Scott's right. I almost asked my husband to go get our lawnmower and mow the Hewitt Park, because I
Well,
walked
and
past it.
they're
I'm like,
full of
honey, can you
Dallas
mow
grass.
that lawn for me?
Dallas grass has a tendency to put those seed heads up and everything, so it doesn't look real good. But no, it just looked like it hadn't. Most of the, I think Sank Park looked like it might have been mowed more recently.
It's the staff, they were using what do they call them? The day release.
The swap workers?
Swappers, yeah. Is that still?
Yes, swap workers, when they're available, are still being used, but even with swap workers, you're tying down
Somebody to watch 'em,
one
yeah.
of your three.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm just saying that swap workers, there's reason why they're on swap.
So you listed, or you mentioned that you have 3 dedicated park workers.
Yes, sir.
And I know that it's been a transition, for probably 10 years or so, moving away from a dedicated park department and going more towards a combination of public works, street trees, and parks.
Right.
So when at one time they probably had 10 or 12 dedicated parks workers. And my understanding was that a lot of those people that would have been dedicated park workers took on additional responsibilities. And so now you work in the street tree department, you work in parks, you work wherever you're needed.
Mhm.
So is it really accurate to say that there's just 3 people taking care of all of our parks?
Yes.
Or is there a
No.
broader base of public works to
No.
pull from?
No, they've been laid off. I mean, we laid off from 147 down to 90 employees. I mean, they're gone.
So,
I have 3 in streets, 3 in parks.
oh, is that the way it works? Oh, that's how you've got it divided out? But they don't cross borders?
If something happened, yes, they could. If there was a large tree that came down or something that needed, of course, I would pull people. I'd pull people from the sewer department, you know, whatever was necessary to handle the issue. But on a day-to-day activities, no. I mean, streets are dedicated because the funding that comes for streets comes from the gas tax, which is specific use money. I can't supplant those dollars and put you in the parks if I'm paying for you out of the gas fund dollars. So it's just not possible anymore. But no, it's accurate and it's fair to say that's where we're at. We've laid off down to that point.
Yeah, and I don't know what the heck to do about the water.
I know.
You know, it's
Can we drill
like
our own
gold.
well?
Well, you know, if I thought we'd get away with it, we'd horizontally drill into the river, but I'm not really sure that we're going to get away with that.
Just drill our own.
Well, you know, there was an idea floated about that the other day about drilling a well at Bedrock Park, and you know, if we can do it, I don't know is the answer. Maybe. I mean, if we can, then you know, maybe that is the thing to do, and maybe we do with water trucks or something. Or
Not so easy to drill a well anymore now, though.
no, it's not. It's and then we're going to get into groundwater sustainability. So, you know, as opposed to paying Cal Water, we'll probably be writing a check to the state of California for the water. I mean,
It seems to me like you have a small well at Hewitt Park. I think we had some discussion about that one time, but it's not a very big one.
Only well I know one is the one at Riverbend, but
I know they put one in there. I mean, so maybe, I mean, you know, maybe what we need to do is we need to start looking at more drought-resistant landscaping. I mean, because what they put in down there, it is nice. I mean, and it's pretty, but it's really not affordable. If it, you know, and I approach things from, if this was my house and my money, would I have done that? Well, if money were no object, sure. I mean, but at $1,400 a month, no. I mean, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to be the.
What area does that cover?
That's Highway 70 at Montgomery on both sides,
Just at the interchange.
just at the interchange.
The landscaping that goes on beyond that along the edge of the freeway, is that Caltrans' responsibility
That's
now?
Caltrans. Yeah, we only do
I thought
those
it was-
2 pieces right there.
I thought it was more, I was under the assumption that it was more drought resistant, but I guess not. Yeah.
Well, that's it's.
Well, it
it's
doesn't
very
have
pricey.
a lawn down there. It has those big, tall fescue
Yeah.
clumps and what have you down there. It is kind of drought tolerant.
That's what I thought, you know.
If it wasn't drought tolerant, it'd be 2,800. That is,
Well,
you know, I mean, sometimes you may have to take a look at some of our little pocket parks and places like that where we're spending money on facilities that aren't really getting used, and turn them off completely and shut them down so we can use the money in the parks that are being used. I don't know what the budget is at Hewitt Park, but Hewitt Park, I would question, is it one of the city's biggest parks? And I would question
Watering it all.
what percentage of use it gets over all the other parks in the city. So, you know, I mean, it's hard when you're down to 3 people and no promise of getting any more money anytime soon. Maybe that's something the council could ponder, is let's just take some areas of Hewitt Park, for example, and just shut it down completely.
And that may be something that, you know, there is a tax measure on the ballot this year, and there's also another measure regarding cannabis on there. If both of the, just hypothetically, let's just say both fail. If both of them fail, then we're going to be having a very difficult conversation with the Parks Commission in January, exactly what you're saying. What are we going to stop doing? I mean, because we have to get real with ourselves, and we have to say this is what we can afford, this is what we can do. And these are the areas identified and recommended by the Park Commission that we're going to shut the water off. We're going to mow, so it's not, growing up and looking terrible, but it's not going to be green and lush anymore, because I would do exactly what you said. I'd rather have one area that's taken care of well, as opposed to a lot of area that's just kind of halfway done.
You take a look at Sank Park. Sank Park is kind of like it's a little jewel for Oroville, and so you want it to look nice. And Hammond Park over in Thermalito, same thing, gets lots and lots of use.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that, we can do the best we can to keep those up and
Sure.
let the other places dry up.
Yeah, we'll just have to have I think this will be an important role of the Parks Commission to help us identify, what you believe is the best areas to do that in.
Yeah, I think in some ways we almost need to redefine the Park Commission a little bit, because I was listening to the Arts Commission earlier before I got here, and that is definitely a group of advocates, and so they want to advocate the fine arts in the community and do everything they can to promote that and increase it in the community, and so people can get behind that. The Parks Commission from my perspective, it almost has two arms. One arm is to support the cultural facilities and the docents that we depend on to manage those and run those facilities. And the other part of it is to advocate for better parks, in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to make sure, I guess, I'm not real active in the docents, but Michelle is. That's her second life, I think.
I have 3 or 4.
And so it's really important to her. And it's really important to other members of the docents association. They have to have somebody that they can go to when they feel like they need help. And that's probably got to be us. And then the other part of that is, how can we feel as advocates of parks, as a park commission, that we're doing any good, that we're providing any viable service to the city of Oroville that really means anything. And so when you ask, we have 3 members. We've only had 3 members for quite some time now. And what do we have to do to get 2 more members? What is it that we're not providing the community that makes them want to be a member of the Park Commission?
We had some interest in someone joining, but there hasn't been much of an active recruitment for additional members. Perhaps, this is true. There's not many. There's just the 3 of us. But there has not, as far as I know, there hasn't been anything sent out there recently, anyway, that indicated that we need park commissioners.
We will begin recruiting tomorrow. We will go out, we'll start.
But I think there has to be some reason for a person to be on the park commissions, to want to be on the park
Right.
commission. They have to feel like they're serving a purpose in the community to give of their valuable time to be on there. And if all the important decisions are basically being made by the council, and there's no money for the park commission to really make recommendations how to spend, and so it's I don't think we're doing a very good job there.
The park commission is in the charter. It's one reason why it still exists. It's a charter item. They used to have more duties and more responsibility, and things used to actually stop at the park commission. For a lot of decisions were made through the commission, and then the information was just given to the city council. That changed about 5-6 years ago, maybe more.
All the policies were rewritten.
Rewritten, and that's when they started doing this Cultural Foundation, that was supposed to take over also some more of the responsibilities of the Park Commission. Foundation didn't happen because there's no one to take those jobs. So yeah, recruitment of some new voices, some people who are concerned, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe some sort of a division between this and the cultural facilities, or some, I don't know how to, that's not what I mean, but.
Like a subcommittee.
Yeah, like the subcommittee that maybe worked more directly with the museums or something like that would help.
Well, when we used to meet monthly,
Yes, we
at
did.
least half of the meeting was devoted to the cultural facilities and, you know, how the docents were, you know, the kinds of issues that they were dealing with on a monthly basis. And, you know, this was their place to come and express them. And if there was anything that needed to be followed up on.
There's
then-
a bunch.
Yeah, and now we've gone away from monthly meetings and,
Away from quarterly, too.
well, yeah, but that's understandable. You know, I understand your point, you know, as to why we missed the meeting and all that. But, I mean, I don't know for sure that quarterly meetings is really enough.
I think that with the state that our parks is in, it would be more necessary for us to meet.
Like maybe every other month or
Maybe
something.
every other month.
We could-
Because if you start going quarterly, you lose track of, for one thing,
Projects, yeah.
3 months could be too long for docents. You know, they have problems all the time. They don't have enough people. You know, their hours, they have different hours they have more hours that fewer people are trying to fill, you know, and they don't really have a voice except through the Park Commission and their own association, of course, you know, and to show up at a council meeting like everybody else, but.
Yeah.
You
So just so you, this was brought to me, so when we're talking about the docents, the process, because of the personnel changes, and we know Cecilia is a contact person, but there's certain procedures like accessions of artifacts and so on, and there's some new artifacts that are being donated, and they weren't sure how to go about that, the policy, you know, what process to go through to get the paperwork through to the city council. And so, as like Scott's saying, that there's the chain that leads to something getting done has broken. And so
It's not broken, and I have to stop you right there. What you're asking is fine, and we can do something like that, but understand what you're asking of staff. I mean, I have everything to do, and then meetings just don't happen. I mean, there is a lot of background noticing and everything else that needs to go on. I have to be here at these meetings to ensure that we are compliance with the Brown Act and things like that. So we can do that. I mean, but understand that this is a function of the city. It's not the only function of the city. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be harsh or anything. And I know I often, and please forgive me, I communicate in a way sometimes that is overly direct, and it sounds like I'm really not. I appreciate what you do, and I do appreciate the Parks Commission, and I do feel that monthly meetings probably actually for a while are probably necessary to get us back on track, because the docents do meet, and I would like to see the docents come to this meeting and use it. Instead of having the docent meeting and the Parks Commission meeting, why don't we just do it all at once? That way we have everybody here that they can hear the Parks Commission can hear the issue. The Parks Commission can make recommendation. And then we can move forward with those recommendations from there. So I agree with you. We probably need to find some way to get back on track. I just want to make sure we do it in a reasonable manner for all of us.
I've been chairman probably for 3 years, at least. maybe more. And even when we were meeting on a monthly basis, I would get calls fairly often. You know, we really don't have anything for the agenda. Do you mind if we postpone it? And most of the time I'd say, yeah. You know, I mean, if there's nothing really pressing, yeah, why not? And now we're down to three members. It's not even easy to get three.
We can't,
Yeah.
if we don't have all three, we don't have a quorum.
Right.
So
So I mean, that's another issue.
we got a
now
problem.
that pops up if you have them, because we're all busy doing other things. So there might be times when we don't even get a quorum.
I think Commissioner Khan was correct. I think we do have an applicant, and I think,
I think that there's two, actually.
yeah, I think it went back out because they wanted to get more or something, and then it kind of just, if I remember correctly, it just kind of died at that point. So let me revisit that and see, contact the folks if they're still interested. If they are, let's do that. Let's get our docents here, have a regularly meeting of this body. And if we don't have any action items, we can still have something similar to what we had today, a conversation about what is going on. We may not be able to take action, but we can at least discuss about what's going on, decide what is an action item for the next meeting, and we can set that up so that there is something to do or something to be involved in, because I think you do play an important role. I mean, I think you play an important role of hearing and help guiding with what are we going to do, and there are going to be difficult decisions to be made, and I think it's the more people we have looking at that, the more input we have, the more likely we're going to come up with probably not a good decision, but a reasonable one.
Well, I think that the reason that we all cut back was everyone has accepted the fact that this is an extra burden on city staff
Sure.
to have all these meetings. I mean, Don was, pretty upfront about that, and so we're just trying to reach a good compromise.
And it's possible, the change of time, if we do meetings during the day instead of after hours, that is more beneficial to staff because then there's no overtime.
Yeah, and that's not a problem for me.
Yeah, no, as long as days work, as long as that works for the commission, I mean, that's, and I think it's really, one of the things that I really like to do is I like to put time limits on what we're doing, because what I found is if we do meetings and we leave them open-ended on the other end, they'll go forever.
Yes.
I mean, we should really be specific. We're going to do, start at 9 and we are going to be done. The gavel's going to drop at 10, and whatever doesn't get done, we'll carry to the next meeting. I mean, that's just, I think that helps move things along. I think that makes people, it's easier for people, I think, to volunteer too, because then they know I'm committing, this one day a month from 9 to 10. They can tell their employers that, hey, I got to be off if they can arrange that. It just makes it easier. So absolutely, if you would like to do during the day,
Well, can you do that?
or earlier in the day, that's fine by me. I'm
Yeah,
here by
I mean-
6:45, so, 7's good.
The mornings are fine for me. The afternoon, moving it forward today was a little hard for Axiom, but,
Oh, sure, because
We'll
you got all
find-
the after-school program.
right. But that's not to say I won't work around it. I
What
will.
time would you like?
And it just depends, because I attend other meetings and they're, often them, so we'll have to figure that out. But I mean,
Okay.
I'm just, to help staff, if we could do it within the timeframe of your day, your work day, then that's fine, we can figure it out.
Okay, if you want to,
4 o'clock doesn't work for you, once a month?
It's not great.
Okay.
I'll make it work if that's what we have to do, but I would prefer before, either 5:30 like we were, or before noon.
Oh, before noon.
if you'd like to do 9, we can do 9, if that works for you. I mean,
As long as it isn't the second and third Tuesdays or Wednesdays of the month.
well, if you want, what we can do is we can bring this back as another item, because we're going to have another meeting next month.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
so.
what is the date of the next meeting?
The meeting will be, what day did we say?
October 9th?
October 9th. And let's tentatively just set that one for, let's just set it for 10 o'clock on the 9th. And then if we need to change it from there, we can change the time from there.
Okay.
Or if you need to send me an email, tell me that don't work, we
So
can
what
reschedule it.
you
too.
would like to have back-to-back Arts Commission though, wouldn't you? If you're gonna do this?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't?
I have some, I already went to 2 other meetings, this is my
What time did we
fourth.
say?
10 a.m.?
We're just looking at 10 right now.
Let me look. October 9th.
That's the day before I leave for Scotland.
Oh, you go to Scotland?
So
Lucky
excited.
person.
Yeah, my talks are now, my classes are now at 1.
Excuse me, I have another commitment that day, October 9th, in the morning.
Okay.
To go
So
to the
He's
we
airport.
going to
probably need to,
Scotland.
but we need to go back the other direction then, because Chrissy's gonna be gone, so.
I'll be gone after the 9th, so I'll be gone the 10th forward, but we could do the afternoon.
Could we do
on
the
9th.
afternoon one more time?
Yeah, of course.
Will that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so we're doing it,
On the 9th?
so it'll be 4 because the commission meets at 3:30. The Arts Commission.
Right.
Correct.
And you can do your business in a half hour. You need an hour, don't you?
Yeah, we need an hour.
So was it
So we can back
4:30?
that up to 4:30 if you like,
Yeah.
if that'll
4:30.
work for you.
4:30 for the Park Commission?
Yes, because it will give the hour to the arts.
Okay.
I just intended to have these meetings to get us back on track to have
Yeah.
in our meetings. 'Cause
Very good.
that's why I crammed them together in such a way. It wasn't to rush. It was just to do that. So we will actively recruit between now and then. If the people, the applicants are still there and still interested, there's a good possibility that we're gonna have new people sitting here. Because I will follow up on that tomorrow. If it's possible, I'm gonna either get it on the agenda next Tuesday or the following Tuesday. So if we can do that, I'd also like to, I'll have Cecilia reach out to the docents and see if we can get the lead docents here. I don't see why they can't come and sit in the staff positions and help us
I would appreciate
figure out our path.
if you could also get the word out to the, whatever the
Save Our Trees.
Oroville Save Our Trees or whatever that group is.
It was one of them that was interested in,
I think I know some of the people on there.
Yeah, they're just on an email list or a mailing list or
It's
something.
Their
too bad.
leader.
It's too bad they have to be in the city. I had a good person for the commission.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
For the parks?
Huh?
For the parks?
Yeah, for the parks.
There's
And
no
I-
exception for outside the city like
I
on
don't
the
think
arts?
so. And I think it's all city, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All city?
That's what we talked about last meeting.
Yeah.
So what I have is, all right, we have that. We will get that scheduled for that date. I'd also like if we could just spend a couple minutes looking at the follow-up list,
All right.
the backlog list. And I would like to look at this and eliminate as many things that aren't viable projects
Foundation.
as you see it. I mean, I don't know. And like I said, I don't know. I just have this a heck of a list that goes back 7 years or older on some of these projects. And if
Well-
it hasn't happened in 7 years, it's probably not going to happen.
This one can go, that one can go.
Well, you're coming from the cultural facilities, so. Well, I'm a little stubborn on that. I don't like to just see them go, but I wouldn't mind you pulling them onto we have something where this is an active backlog list.
I believe so. This is the
Have
last one I
that
could
has
find.
other items on it. This is supposed to be active one, and then there was one.
There's
they kept-
another one? Okay.
Yeah, that has stuff that falls off of this,
Okay,
but has never been taken care of, just so it doesn't get lost forever.
okay.
But
So what would be, okay, so I need to find that other list, and then
What I-
what would be ones that I would move on to that?
Or just create it. I mean, create it from this.
Well, I don't want to, I'm going to try to find the one in case there's stuff on there that, you know, like Commissioner Lawrence was,
Well, anything that has to do with the foundation, the cultural foundation, that has not gone anywhere. So that could be pulled off of the active list. So I think that's the first one.
we'll go to that to inactive.
PTC 4, that can go on inactive.
Okay,
The herb drawers can go on inactive PTT 6.
okay,
Alt 8 is just an update when anything happens, like you did tonight with the bleachers. Anything that happens in a park that is noteworthy, that the city does, you bring it to our attention.
I think somebody in the audience has something to share.
I don't think you know that Don Noble has planned a bedrock cleanup of the river
I saw
on
that.
Saturday. I just would like to advise you.
Doesn't that also include the nature center this Saturday?
Yes, I think that a small portion, but we talked about it, but we thought that somebody had already agreed to do the work in the nature center, had adopted that as their project.
Oh, I
It
see.
was the docents.
So
It's the.
So we have an effort going on at the nature center Saturday, and one going on at Bedrock too?
yes, that's what
Okay.
Since Don's not on the Feather River Board, can we recruit him for Parks Commission?
I don't
Just
know if he
Within the
lives in
city?
the city of
Huh?
Oroville.
Does he live within the city?
I don't know, but we can ask him.
What were those project numbers again to inactivate?
4 and 6. PTC 4 and 6 could go on and inactive, I guess.
Is the backlog, is PTC 8 something that really would be on a backlog list?
Backlog, I think that's an active meeting item.
That's a direction of the commission to bring back, you should be updated on all the parks and what's going on in those, and I would hope to think that
I'd hope so.
we can get Wade in here at the, once we get these things regularly scheduled, and he can update you on what's going on in each park. So I'm not really sure that's a backlog item.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I will.
It was something that was put on there by Frida Flint.
I'll move it to the, I'll move it to the agenda as a, instead of, where it has administration reports or whatever,
Park
it'll be
updates
park
or something.
updates.
There
And then
you
we'll
go.
move it there to, take it off of here.
Just do-
All right, well, that's what, yeah, so we could make that note here, move to park updates.
Right, and then stewardship can do the same thing.
Well, there's absolutely been nothing happening with park stewardship for
Right.
quite some time. We have two groups that sort of come under that. One of them is the Hope Center. They do some work at Hewitt Park and
Save our trees.
some other place, and then Save Our Trees up here
Centennial.
at Centennial Park. Those two groups are the stewardship programs that we have, and there's nothing new. So
Are we talking like an adopt a park type of a program? Something like that?
that's where it came from.
Is that something that we're interested in?
Yes.
Well, we were, yeah, and it just kind
I
of
think Dawn had
didn't
said
go
that she
anywhere.
would start working on it.
We actually
Um,
had a committee that was, worked on it for quite some time. We couldn't get any interest. And about the only things that have really come up with it were the Hope Center, the Save Our Trees, and then there was also the partnership that the city has with Feather River Recreation and Park District over the water, use of water from Riverbend Park for something,
Yeah, some street sweeping or something. they
that was
had
some trade-off
a while
for that.
back, yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I mean,
There was some interest, I met with a group on Friday that has some interest in a adopt a park type situation. It was some local pastors that are looking for a project now.
And I had asked Dawn at our last meeting to like work on what it is that Save Oroville Trees does that make them so successful at Centennial, and what Hope Center does at Hewitt and what makes them successful there, so that we could develop like a kind of an MOU of like, if you adopt a park, this is the standard, this is what we're looking for when you adopt a park. So not only to keep, a standard across all parks, but also to say, look, can your group do this? It's a good way to recruit new groups to adopt parks.
So we probably should look into that some more and leave that on the follow-up list, whether we call it stewardship or adopt. Okay, we'll leave that on there.
then I guess we jump all the way to
21.
21, huh?
That's just a report that comes regularly, doesn't it? It's a fiscal year report.
That's an annual report.
That's an
That
annual
is,
report.
just an update, that's supposed to be an annual report that comes back to the Park Commission, in
You're probably due.
July, I think.
Yeah, you're probably due for one because of the time frame and everything. So we'll get that on as an agenda item.
And then
Safety
the safety training, how's
Doesn't
that?
It doesn't occur. Doesn't occur. Because I volunteer at the hospital and I have to go through training every year, I thought we should have some sort of training for our docents every year, so they know how to close down a museum if they have to leave and that sort of thing. But that doesn't have to be on the backlog. It could just somehow be worked into a schedule.
If you don't put them on this backlog
They-
report,
they
they
won't-
fall
okay.
off the agenda.
So we should revisit that at least annually, like it says. The docents the docents should know how to get out of there if there's like when we had the crisis with the spillway. They should have known how to leave the museum and lock it up so that they could leave because staff was doing, can't come to them, or if somebody had a heart attack and they were called and had to, they need to know how to leave the
Who locks
museum.
it now?
Well, the staff does it. Staff opens and closes most of them.
Okay.
Seems silly.
Well, there's some people, maybe the lead docents have a key or something, but essentially staff, there is a book, there's a manual that tells you
Right.
how to close it down, but they need to revisit it so they understand how to do it each year, I mean, it's just this was for the hospital, we do the same information, but when you revisit it, you remind you how to do it, and so you can feel confident in doing it. That's all it is, and it can be done at a docent meeting, but just as long
And
as there's.
I think you're probably right. We probably need to put on some sort of training though for the lead docents, and then they can take that to the rest
Well,
of the
that's why
docents.
it's on here, and I
Right.
thought it was done.
It hasn't been done since,
Well, we're up for it due again.
yeah.
Okay, we'll get that.
But one of the
get that
things I was
scheduled.
thinking, under the regular agenda, under reports, we have director's report, commissioners' announcements reports, subcommittees, ad hoc commissioners' reports. Maybe we ought to have on the regular agenda docent's report. And we get that in writing, usually from the lead docent. Use an attachment as correspondence or.
It's just a newsletter.
Yeah, it's just usually just a newsletter or something, whatever the lead docent feels, they want to get us.
Do you think they're going to bring a verbal report, oral report, or are they going to send something? I mean, because we can either do it under correspondence
Nice
as
if
a
we-
written report, or if they're going to do a verbal report, we can just add to the subcommittees or eliminate subcommittees, ad hoc committees, put commissioner and docent reports.
Well, I would say go ahead and put it as a report with, like you said, with the commissioners, and I'll see that they, more than the newsletter, because the newsletter is a chatty little thing that talks about how well we're doing and happy this.
Right.
But a docent report should have a report on some of their concerns, just a little list, just a simple list of
Yeah,
concerns.
I think that would be good, and that would get them invested back in the park commission meeting maybe a little bit.
Well, I also think that as you do that, you should implement the same strategy for people who adopt a park. So reports from them as well.
If you have a committee.
When we have a
We don't
committee.
have a committee.
When?
No, well, just that it would be.
Unless you want to be that committee.
I'll be that committee.
Choose that committee.
you go.
I'm the docent committee, there we are.
There you are. Okay.
And you're part of both of them.
We had an adopt a
Congratulations.
park, we called it an adopt a park committee, and then it got changed to park stewardship.
Why don't we just change that particular one? It says subcommittees, ad hoc committees, commission reports. Why don't we eliminate subcommittees, eliminate ad hoc committees, because ad hoc committees and subcommittees are made up of commissioners, so they can report under their commissioner
Uh-huh.
report if necessary. Then add committee reports. That way it can, if it's other folks, they can give their report. You can ask for their report, and docents,
Okay,
and leave it there. Because I think that gives you enough of a window that you can get just about anybody underneath that. Essentially, that's staff reports.
What is this one? Website, I don't know.
so we're gonna leave safety training back on the backlog report then, or? pull it?
That really should be a policy. It shouldn't be
It should
on
be a
something on
yeah,
a long
it should be a
term.
policy, it just should be done.
I mean, I think that training needs to be scheduled for your lead
Well-
docents to pass down the training. I mean, so probably on what would be appropriate for the backlog would be is when we come back as a group, when are we doing this training?
Run training.
Report back to the commission on what's scheduled, what the plan is, and then go from there.
Okay, PTC 27,
The updates website, it's ongoing thing.
we never seem to do anything on that.
But not since we take it off and then we'll check it occasionally.
Provide link to park commission webpage. You talked a little bit about adding art commission stuff to the
Yeah.
webpage today.
And I think we can do the same thing. I think we can probably impose upon Jackie to do those things for us, as long as we know what those are.
We went through a pretty thorough analysis. We had a committee, and we went through a pretty thorough analysis of the website and made recommendations for both the cultural sites and the park sites, and they were made. It was done, and they're on the website. So unless somebody has really something that they feel like that need to add to the website, it's pretty much done, I think.
Yeah, I think so. For the
Well,
for-
I'd like to add events, you know, as things come up that you'd like to have on there.
Like the cleanup.
yeah.
But I think we can get that probably under, you know, that'll fit into your agenda somewhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
just take it off the backlog report and I think you'll be fine. Vandalism, that was something that hasn't really happened yet.
No, what I really wanted at this request was I wanted a cost of vandalism, including, I mean, not just the materials costs, but the labor costs and then the volunteer costs and whatever. And I wanted it published in the paper so people would have an idea of the time and the money that it costed for vandalism as a incentive maybe for them to be paying more attention to what was going on and report it or stop it or something. It was just so that it would be out there and people could say, you know, it cost us this much, you know what I mean? It would be something that may help stifle some of the vandalism.
I just think that apparently this bookkeeping system is not sophisticated enough without a lot of not undue, but a lot of extra effort. In order to get the information that she wants, you have to put the information in.
And I think that we have went through some massive changes with our software. I mean, and our time is tracked now down to what did I do for this hour. You actually said, you know, I worked in this park and it's charged to that park. So we do have much better software now that we can drill down on that. It's never going to be perfect. What I would recommend is that we do a quarterly estimate of what we spent on vandalism in the parks, and then we do an annual one. That way every quarter you're updated on what we've expended as far as time and as far as materials, and then after every year we compile that. I mean, so that it's available out there, and I think it is important that people know how much money we are expending in our parks and on our parks.
And I just thought that maybe, just like that people were complaining about Bedrock, if they knew the time and the effort, like, you know, your report, then they may say, oh, well, they're trying, and maybe I can do something. I don't know. I just think it would make a difference.
Yeah, no, I think transparency and reporting to the community is always a good thing, and I think if that will work for you, that's what we'll do, is we'll start at the next meeting bringing you back. We'll look back from July forward, what have we done as far as vandalism in the parks or whatever. I'll have Wade sort through it and sort this out. Then I'll ask Wade to start tracking their, you know, if it's a vandalism project, you know, just put like Hewitt Park V. That way we know, okay, it was a vandalism project they spent that hour on, so we can track our time.
Yeah, I'd appreciate, I think it would help.
I think with the
some way.
caveat, we're going to put an asterisk on there and tell everybody this is an estimation. So,
Yeah.
you know, anybody goes through there and goes, well, you know, you only spent $99, not $99 and a penny.
Yeah.
We can say, okay, well, we were estimating.
So I didn't originate this backlog report, but the reason for it, I guess, is because, you know, over time, you know, 8 months goes by, a year goes by, and you wonder whatever happened to that item.
I like
we
the
talked
backlog.
about, you know, so the backlog report was kind of intended to do that. When I started on the commission, I think it was at least 4 or 6 pages.
It was thicker.
And so over time, we whittled it down to, you
We're
know,
getting there.
just this. So, but like I said, not all of them have been accomplished. But they just, times change, conditions change. So they just kind of went from an active to an inactive somewhere. They're still on a computer somewhere. The Pioneer Museum, that was basically on there because of the efforts that, or the discussion that was taking place about a group taking over the Pioneer Museum. And the last conversations that we had with Dawn was that it's just sort of at a stalemate. Nothing's not moving forward. It's just sort of just sitting there because.
Well, yeah, they were they thought that they had ownership when it was donated to the city, but that was not what happened. It was actually owned by something other than a person rather than the museum, rather than the Native Sons. And so they didn't actually own the things, and so there was that. And they haven't pursued it. The Native Sons haven't seemed to be pursuing it anymore. And there's also, in order for anything of this thing to go along, there needs to be an inventory taken of the Pioneer. And that's what that computer is for that's listed here. That's
Is-
the computer I asked you to check on.
Is there any interest from this commission at all of continuing these talks, or are we just not
No.
interested in get rid of the?
I'm not
We're
interested.
interested in keeping the Pioneer Museum in the city and not
Are we interested in pursuing?
essentially letting
the
somebody else
baby steps?
acquire it.
I'm not.
I think that depends on how the ballot measures go at the end of
Yeah.
this year. I mean, if we're at a place where we do need to close down or move things, then we have a buyer.
Well, I mean,
If not, then
They weren't gonna buy it.
yeah, if they're not in,
I thought Don was of the opinion that if this happened, that it would be, in the long run, it would be a good thing for the city. Because someone else would come in and take on the responsibilities and the expense
Right.
of operating the museum and not the city of Oroville. And they would probably do as good or better job than we're doing. But it just didn't look like it was going to happen very easily, because having to document everything and find out what was actually city property and wasn't what was city
Yeah.
property. And it just seemed like with everything else that was on the city's mind right now, it just wasn't very high priority for council or anybody. You know, so it's just sort of floating out there. That's why it's still on the backlog. I would say put it on the inactive. If it comes up again, put it back on. You know, if there's renewed interest to do that, then we'll put it back on. But
Yeah, well, if it becomes an issue where the property, but there still has to be time spent with an inventory, because some of the items were transferred when the city received the property, but a lot of the items have been, become city property later. So there's this question about who owns what, or who owned what when.
well, I would tell you that any of the parks and any of the museums are very important to the community. It's very important to the quality of life in the community. But I can also tell you that they're lost leaders and they run at an operational deficit. You're not going to get rich running any of these things. I personally would not get rid of it. I wouldn't even entertain the conversation, just because I believe that the value that it brings is greater. I mean, now, the economic troubles that we're having right now are right now. They're not forever. At some point, we're going to
Are
come
you
out.
sure?
Yes. I mean, we're going to come out the other side at some point. I won't be here most likely. There'll be somebody behind me, and I would really hate to allow something that is so important to the community, for the quality of life of individuals here in the cultural expansion of their own minds, that we shouldn't be letting these things go, especially if it's over $1. There's ways to do this, which may mean that we go back and we say, we're going to keep all of our museums open, but they're open one day a week, and it rotates. I mean, so I know it's not ideal, but it is some way to keep that facility and those items open. I'm just not, I agree, put it on inactive if we
Doesn't
get
it-
in that situation.
Yeah, if it comes back up again, you know, so it brings back up, we can talk about it. But you just made me think of something, though, about the docents. The fact that our docents are declining, and they are the only ones to staff our museums. So I think it would be nice to have some discussion about that at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to get their way in and
Talk
by.
about what are the alternatives, how do we deal with,
Right.
so that the docents, because I feel from comments that I've heard, that the docents are feeling like they're being put under undue pressure to try to continue to operate the museums when they don't have the bodies to do it. And so I think, probably ought to talk about, well, what are some of the alternatives? As
And
you
those,
just mentioned.
yeah, those alternatives are, and I think that's probably where you might be hearing that is from the Chinese temple, because we got rid of we had to eliminate the position that was down there, the part-time position. And I'm not really even sure how that position survived. I mean, it should not have survived because of our contractual agreements with our labor unions. I mean, it's really clear in our policy that all part-time jobs are gone prior to any full-time jobs being eliminated. And how it made it through, I don't know, but it did. And it wasn't a matter of going back and correcting that. It was a matter of we were making difficult decisions. We were running an operational deficit of on those days that it wasn't available. The docents didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep it open.
They're the
So,
ones that chose to do the 4 days instead of
so and
just the
it's,
2.
and I'm not being critical of them. I'm just saying, you know, we're certainly willing to entertain conversations. I mean, if somebody wants to keep it open, that's great. If they can't and it's becoming too much, we certainly understand that as well, and we will work with them to see what we can get done. I mean, but it's, you know, difficult decisions are going to have to be made if we continue on the path we're on.
That's why I think we need to have some discussion,
Yeah.
so.
And that's why this
we don't
commission
wanna
is so
lose to it,
important.
Because
No.
you lose, if all of a sudden, you know, people get upset with what happens, you know, and they walk away, then we've got nothing.
It's like this. You come in and you go, what is this about? Can you explain that? Because that's really what I'm here today, is to learn about what are all these things. Because, and I'm really sad. It's unfortunate that I have to report to you that I've been here a long time. I never paid attention. I mean, because this just wasn't in my wheelhouse, and all of a sudden now it's, you know, been landed squarely in my wheelhouse. And man, I wish I'd have been paying attention before, when I was sitting over there in the corner spinning in the chair. I mean, it would have been really useful.
You didn't think it was gonna come your way.
No, I mean,
He was hoping it wouldn't.
Yeah.
but I will put this on the inactive list. You know, I just really think that, personally, I don't think the community should let an asset like a museum go.
And then the last item there is having to do with the municipal auditorium. We already talked about it. I asked you how the floor was going, you know, with that project. So it's just, I felt like when I came on the park commission, that the municipal auditorium was not really kind of considered anything that the park commission had anything to do with. Because the city had acquired it back from the recreation district, and it was, you know, I mean, it's sort of like the State Theater. You know, they're not exactly parks per se,
It's a wet weather park.
but I think that I have a lot of concern in that as being a community building, and so I am
But I think that is,
interested in knowing what's going on.
I think
there.
it is under the purview of the Parks Commission, because it's often used by kids that are practicing baseball in the spring that can't be out on the wet fields. It's,
Well,
you
it
know,
can-
I know we've opened, there's lots of things that can occur, and there's
It
lots
used
of
to come
physical
in the
activity.
finance report too. You know, they showed up in the finance report. You know, as far as what the overall income and expense was. I know it is, you know, but it was kind of outside the normal purview of the.
Yeah,
of
I
the
think we
commission,
should,
but-
you know, probably move that back into it and make it part of the regular discussion, because I think it is something that is a component of, you know, I think if it has a component of recreation, which parks are for, then it should be included in the park commission.
That made me just think of something. So I work with the Boys and Girls Club occasionally, and I was working with them on robotics, and they were meeting at the Southside Community Center. And now my understanding is that they lost some funding, and they no longer are at the Southside Community Center, and they're out at Los Lomos High School. Do you have any idea what will become of the space that they were using in terms of that building continuing to be an asset, community asset for the city of Oroville?
You know, it's being ran by the Oroville South Side Improvement maybe committee, but they're running the building now, operating it, so I'm not sure if they have another tenant that's going to be moving in there, or how that's going to work.
Even though the county
Still
still owns it, they have
They have
let the
leased it to-
operation of it go
yeah.
to a committee.
It's went to another group that's handling the operation of the facility, because it was, my understanding is when the county was operating it, they were losing money on it. The group that's in there now seems to be being successful, and not sure what they're going to do with the space that, or if they have any future tenants, or if they have plans for that space. Not really sure.
It would be a terrible shame if it did lost its use as a community asset.
I believe it's still available. It's just I'm not sure why the boys. Probably the reason why the Boys and Girls Club had to move was because this year, when the CDBG money came out and the grants were awarded, there was only, the city could only, they've changed their guidelines, and we could only do one community, not event, but we can only partner with one community project.
I remember reading about that in
Right.
the paper, yeah.
And it was YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and Catalyst, and the decision was made to go with Catalyst. So that funding went there. So that probably played a role in that. The county also withdrew some funding from the Boys and Girls Club. So I think that probably ultimately led to them having to move because they just couldn't afford the rent. But I'm not sure what the current management of the building intends to do with this. I imagine it's available for lease.
Thank you.
One of the things that I would like to bring back to,
Let me add that in actuality, it was a good thing that the Boys and Girls Club left because they were renting it at a very reduced rate, which was forcing the community center to lose money. And so they are going to rent that space to other people now and use it for other things. It was a huge portion of the building. And so in actuality, they are going to do better with that. So it's more open to the public and it's being used a lot more now than it was before. There are a
By
lot-
community groups?
The monks are doing their funerals there instead of on Montgomery Street.
Oh, that's nice for parking.
So they're doing very well. They're making good money.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the update on that.
It's interesting that both the community band and chorus and the Boys and Girls Club have moved to Las Plumas or to the high school. I mean, that's a different relationship than I have seen with the schools before.
Well, they, fortunately, at least for this first year, I guess, the school district is providing them 2 portable classrooms out there for no charge. So that's a real help to the Boys and Girls Club.
Mm-hmm.
But their numbers that they can reach, that they can serve, are down. It's like 50 people is the maximum that they can do.
Oh, because the space isn't large enough.
Well, I think it's a combination of space and manpower.
one of the last things I think that we need to have a conversation about at our next meeting are going to be our fee structures. We need to really look at our fee structures. We're renting out the CCC building, the community cultural center up on the hill at Arline Rhine for $2 a person for an event. That's
Too low.
that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, unless you just want to lose money. We have to look at what is a reasonable fee structure for that gathering room in there.
Well, with that, then we should also look at how we advertise the availability to rent those spaces.
Yeah, we should probably do a better job of doing that. We don't want to get into, if I were a local person who was renting stuff, I would have a fit about this because it is absolutely unfair competition for the government to come in and rent a space of this size at that amount, because it's just, if that was my business of selling space. So we need to look at that. It's a fee structure that needs to be adjusted. We need to look at our times that we rent out our shade structures in our parks and things like that, because it's just weird how we're off 1 hour. I mean, we should be doing something to noon, 1 to 4, but instead we're doing like 10 to 1 and then 1:30 or something. It's something really bizarre, and it's like I'm not sure how it landed there, but we probably need just to adjust that and just look at what is a reasonable fee structure. I'm not suggesting that we go and look at some of the other. I've looked at other communities. I'm not ever going to suggest what they're suggesting for their facilities. I just don't think that's realistic in our town. But I think it has to be something where we at least it's a cost neutral item for us, that we're not just losing ourselves. You have 5 people in there, $10 in there, and they're all, for half the day, and the air conditioner's running. I can't even afford to send somebody up there to unlock the door for that. Never mind, use the facility.
Right.
So I would like to bring that back if that's something you're interested in,
And that's something
and
we
begin
have
that
done before.
conversation.
We always like to look at that, and talk about it. We don't make those decisions, obviously. We can only make recommendations.
Correct.
It has to go to the council.
But it makes it, as somebody who regularly participates in the council meetings, I can tell you it's so much easier for me when I can stand here and tell the council, I've been in front of the Parks Commission, we vetted this out, this is also their recommendation. There are those times that I have been here when, and it's never been with the Parks Commission or the Arts, it's been with the Planning Commission where the council rejects the recommendation. I would tell everybody, don't ever take it personal. It's just how it went that day, so.
Well, that's
But
just-
but it does make it easier for me when I do get that, essentially the blessing from the Parks Commission to move forward, and I vetted this out. And I like the idea too of throwing this against you, what do you think, and you telling me, I mean, cause it's not the world according to me, I don't see everything, and, it helps me, formulate the best possible plan to take forward. So I will be bringing that back,
Okay.
for us to begin our work on that. With that, I can't think of anything else unless you have something. We have found the computer, Michelle. So we will be getting that. I'm gonna try to get it, delivered down there this week and dropped off.
And it would be good because we were trained on the program, but we were trained it's been 2 years ago or so when we had a half hour or an hour training, and we would need to be
Updated.
revisit that.
Okay.
So we
I'll
know
ask
how to do
Tyson
the
if,
program.
I know that he's going through an update now, a server move at the police department, so I don't know how tied up he's gonna be on that tomorrow, but if we can't get it this week, we'll get it the first part of next, we'll get some updated training. I'm not really sure why it
I'm there
ended
the
up
20
somewhere else.
I'm there the 29th and 30th at the Pioneer. So that's a Saturday, Sunday.
So what,
We're not open.
Yeah.
our next, are we now meeting on Tuesdays, is that right?
We put
Well,
We
Tuesday,
it's
switched
October
to
9th.
Tuesday last year.
Huh?
we switched to Tuesdays last year.
What was that last item
Was Mondays.
for the next agenda?
Yeah, so our next meeting is
Fees.
on Tuesday.
Yeah.
My point, yeah, Tuesday of the week, okay. So can we have the agenda packets ready by,
Friday.
You'll get them most likely, our goal is to get them out the Thursday before the meeting.
okay,
And that way you have all of Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
you-
Monday.
put them out on email
We will, do we email them now, Joanna?
We did.
to us?
I did email him, and I posted it on the website.
Posted it on the website too.
Because we got the packets,
Yeah.
we were getting the packets through through email. We could look.
We can do email for you, and I think, we can also do hard copy if you'd like to pick up a if you let us know you want a hard copy, we'll make you a hard copy.
What I would like personally is I would like to be emailed the Thursday before, whenever, it's ready, and then a hard copy to pick up here.
Okay.
That way, I don't have to, use the expense of running off all that on my
Sure.
little paltry little printer at home. I can come get it, but yet I get all the information
Right.
electronically. that I
That's
can
the
read.
way that we have been receiving them, is we would get them electronically and then picking up the packets either the day,
Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Monday even,
Well, our goal is to get them out the Thursday before the meeting, and we've been hitting that goal pretty consistently, so that's our goal to get that done, and absolutely, we can email and have you a hard copy if that's your preference. We will do both of those items.
Thank you. Is there any other business for the good of the order? All right, hearing none, we will adjourn the Park Commission meeting to our next regular Park Commission meeting on October 9th at 4:30 PM.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Very much for your
Thank
time
you.
and effort.
Bill, one of the people who had previously applied for the Parks Commission, it went to council for approval, and then that's when the council said that we want more applicants. He's still, I texted him while we were chatting, he's still interested, and his name's Joseph. So he said that he'll come by tomorrow to pick up another application, but as fair warning, it did leave a bad taste in his mouth that the council was like, we want more people. When
Oh, well.
you have people who want to do it.
I'm surprised the council said that. How long did they try to get people for the foundation?